My brother offered to help clean out our childhood home after our parents died. I thought he was grieving like me, until I found our dad's hidden safe empty and saw my brother's fingerprints on the back panel. That's when I knew he'd been here long before me. After our parents passed just months apart, Mom from cancer, Dad from a stroke, my brother and I were left with the house. A modest two-story in a quiet town where nothing ever changed and everything still smelled like the past. Mark, my older brother by 5 years, was the golden child growing up. Perfect grades, star athlete, always in Dad's shadow but never questioned. Me? I was the quiet one, observant, stayed out of trouble, kept to myself. We hadn't spoken much since the funerals, so when he offered to help me go through the house, I said yes. Mostly because I didn't want to face it alone. He arrived early that Saturday with coffee and gloves. Smiling like this was just another chore. We started in the attic, sifting through boxes of old clothes, yearbooks, photo albums. There were moments of real warmth, when he found Dad's old Navy jacket and we both laughed at how it still smelled like pipe tobacco. But something shifted when we reached the office. Dad's home office was always locked growing up. Strict rule. No entry unless invited. I never thought much of it. Just assumed it was where he paid bills, hid birthday presents, kept paperwork. But the key had been taped to the underside of his desk drawer. And behind the bookshelf in the floorboards under the rug was the safe. A safe I never knew existed. The safe wasn't large, about the size of a microwave, but it was bolted into the floor, the kind that didn't exist for show. This wasn't for old watches or expired passports. This was meant to stay hidden. Mark stood behind me as I wiped off the dust and entered Dad's birthday as the code. Clicked open on the second try. Empty. No files. No cash.
No keys.
No documents. Just a faint dust outline, like something had been there recently. I turned to Mark, eyebrows raised. You ever seen this before? He shrugged. Nah. Weird. Maybe Dad emptied it before. But he didn't finish, because I just noticed something on the back panel inside the safe. A smudge. Then another. Fingerprints, oily, recent. 5 clear marks pressed into the steel. Someone had opened this after Dad passed. And Dad had been in the hospital unconscious for nearly a month before he died. I looked at Mark again. This time he didn't meet my eyes. You sure you've never seen it? I asked again. Long pause. Then he exhaled through his nose, like a slow leak. Maybe once. Maybe. He leaned against the desk. Look, I found it a couple weeks after Dad died. Came by before the funeral to look for documents, life insurance stuff. Saw the safe. Figured it couldn't hurt to check. My heart was thudding now. And, he hesitated. There was cash, papers, stuff that didn't matter. Then why not tell me? He looked up at me, calm, but cold. Because not all of it was for you. I felt my jaw tighten. What do you mean not all of it was for me? Mark didn't flinch. Didn't look guilty. Just tired. Some of it was personal, he said. Letters, receipts, Dad's private stuff. Things he probably meant to destroy but never got around to. That's not your call, I said. You should have told me. He gave a bitter laugh. You think everything Dad ever did was for us? You always saw him as this clean, upright man. But you were the kid. You didn't see what I saw. I stared at him. So enlighten me. He pushed away from the desk, walked to the window. Dad had a second life, he said quietly. Another house, another account. He'd been siphoning money off retirement savings for years, sending checks to some woman, cash under a different name. I blinked. You're saying Dad was cheating on Mom? Not just that, he said. He had another kid. The room spun for a second. The silence felt heavy, like the air had thickened. You're serious? I asked. He nodded. I found the birth certificate, the wire transfers, even photos. He called the kid Joshua. Looked about 8 years old in the last picture. I shredded the copies and took the rest. Mom didn't deserve to go to her grave not knowing she was second. I didn't even realize I was clenching my fists until my nails dug into my palm. And you thought you got to decide that? Mark finally turned to me. I thought I was protecting the family. No, I said. You were protecting your image of Dad. He didn't deny it. And in that moment, I realized something. He wasn't ashamed of what he did. He was ashamed that I'd found out. I didn't yell. I didn't punch a wall or storm out or make some dramatic threat. I just looked at my brother, this man who used to hold my hand crossing the street, who carried me on his shoulders at the zoo, who told me Dad was a hero, and I felt something sink.
Something de permanent.
So what now? He asked. You gonna tell everyone? I sat on the edge of Dad's old desk, trying to steady my thoughts. I don't care about the money, I said slowly. But Joshua? He exists. He's real. And he deserves to know who his father was. Mark scoffed. He's probably better off not knowing. You want to show up at some stranger's house and tell him he's part of this mess? Yes, I said, because he is part of this mess. And because pretending he doesn't exist won't make you cleaner. Don't do this, he said. Don't blow up what's left of our family over someone you've never even met. You already blew it up, I said. I'm just done sweeping the ashes under the rug. We didn't say much after that. He left. Didn't slam the door, didn't apologize, didn't look back. I spent the next week going through what was left of the safe. Even though most of the papers were gone, Dad had stashed a small USB in the bottom lip, barely noticeable. Inside were scanned letters, a few written to Mom, most written to someone named Elena. There was one addressed to Joshua, unfinished, dated just 6 months before Dad died. It started, I know I waited too long, but I still want you to know who I am. That was all I needed. So I made a decision. I started with the name Elena and the address tied to the wire transfers. The city was only an hour away. Not some distant escape, just far enough for Dad to keep his secret without risking discovery. I expected it to be hard, but people leave traces. An old landline listing, a property tax record, a PDA newsletter from 2 years ago with her name printed under event coordinator. It took me less than a week to find her house. I didn't knock the first time. I sat in the car, watched a boy, maybe 10, 11, ride his bike up and down the driveway. He looked like Dad, not in some vague, hopeful way. The jawline, the smile, even the way he flicked his hair out of his eyes. It was him, Joshua. I drove home and stared at the unfinished letter again. Reread it 10 times. Part of me felt like I was crossing a line Dad never finished drawing. But the bigger part of me, the one Dad raised, knew that running from truth was never the answer. So I went back. This time I knocked. Elena opened the door. She looked older than the photos in Dad's files. But her expression told me she recognized me immediately. She didn't look surprised, just resigned. I was wondering when one of you would come, she said. I nodded. Can we talk? She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind her. He used to talk about you, she said. About your mom. About your brother. He never hated you. He just didn't know how to be both versions of himself. And Joshua? Her eyes softened. He thinks his dad was a soldier who died overseas. A hero. I swallowed hard. He was never told? Your father wanted to tell him when he turned 12, she said. But he never made it that far. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the printed letter. Then maybe it's time he hears it. Elena didn't take the letter right away. She stared at it like it was radioactive, something that could either heal or shatter everything she'd built. I didn't rush her. This wasn't about guilt or justice anymore. It was about truth and what people were strong enough to carry it. Finally, she took it. I'll read it first, she said. And if it feels right, I'll let him. I nodded. I'd like to be there if that happens. Her eyes searched mine for a moment, then softened. You look like him when you say things like that. 2 days later, she called. We met at a park neutral ground. Joshua thought I was an old friend of his dad's from before. He was quiet at first, polite, a little guarded. But when I started talking about the way Dad used to laugh at his own bad jokes, the way he couldn't fix anything without duct tape, Joshua started to smile. He did that too? He asked. He always said tape was his superpower. We talked for nearly an hour. I didn't drop the big reveal. I didn't say, I'm your brother, or, our dad lived 2 lives. I just told him stories. Real ones. Small ones. The kind that make a person feel known. And when Elena gave him the letter later that night, she texted me, he cried. But not because he was angry, because for the first time something made sense. He asked to see me again the next weekend. It's been a few months now. Mark hasn't reached out and I'm done waiting. Joshua and I go for walks. Sometimes we don't even talk about Dad. We just are. And weirdly, that's enough. He doesn't ask for more than what I can give. And in return, he gives me something I didn't expect to find in this mess. A new beginning. A brother I didn't know I needed. A second chance at something honest. And that's more than Dad ever gave either of us.